Hi there, I'm Miss Koenig, and this is a quick video tutorial on graphing rational numbers on a number line. Let's jump in. So let's start with something like this. It's a mixed number that makes it a little easier to graph. If you were to have an improper fraction or a fraction greater than 1, I would suggest writing it as a mixed number. It makes everything a little easier. So in order to graph this on a number line, first, of course, I need a number line. Be sure to put those arrows. That implies that these numbers continue on and that this is not the only number that would appear on a number line. Now, to graph this, we really want to know, like if we were rounding, what are the numbers that are close to 30 and 5/9? In this case, I would say that is somewhere in between 30 and 31. So those are the first things that I'll place on my number line. From there, what I need to show are ninths because that's my denominator. That tells us what goes on the number line. If we need 9 spaces, that means we need 8 lines. Oop, very close. Let me add one more. And then our dot, how we signify a number is to use a dot. So to show 30 and 5/9, I need to go 5 dashes from my 30 and put a dot there. This is 30 and 5/9 on a number line. Let's do another. Here I have the exact same concept. I'm just graphing a negative. Now the reason why this is different is because of the direction that we're counting in. Remember that a number line should always go from least to greatest, from left to right. So when I think about what number is 40 and 3/4 close to, or negative 40 and 3/4, it should be between negative 40 and negative 41. Now on the negative side of the number line, we need our numbers to actually feel a little bit backwards, and that's because if you imagine the number line continuing on, 0 would be way over to the right, and then positive numbers would include even further right from the 0. Again, to graph this, I need to use this denominator to figure out how many sections are going to go on my number line. In this case, I need fourths, which means I need 3 tally marks. Now, when you're counting with negative numbers, you should be moving in the opposite direction you would traditionally use. Typically, we think of increasing values as going toward the right. In this case, it's going to feel almost like increasing values are going to the left. I say that because it works like this. Negative 40 and 1/4 would be here. Negative 40 and 2/4, or 1/2, would be here. Negative 40 and 3/4 would be here. Now it feels like the value is increasing from right to left instead of left to right, and that's because we're working in the negative numbers. So although it feels like 40 and 3/4 is larger than 40, negative 40 and 3/4 is actually smaller than negative 40. So either way, we've got our numbers listed. We put a dot on the line, and that's how we graph negative 40 and 3/4. Now let's take a look at what that looks like in decimal form. So here I have the decimal negative 7.6. Again, I'm graphing a negative number, so I really need to be conscious of the fact that my 0 and my positive numbers would be to the right of the number line that I'm seeing now, and I'm going to be counting down and moving toward the left. To that end, I need to know that negative 7.6 is between negative 7 and negative 8. Negative 7 is closer to 0, so it goes on the right. Negative 8 is smaller, so it goes on the left. Now in this case, I don't have a fraction to give me a denominator, but I do have a decimal place. So it's important here to remember that your decimal places all have names. The first decimal place is called the tenths. That tells me that on my number line, I need tenths. In this case, tenths would mean I need 9 dashes. 9 dashes will give me 10 spaces, which is what we want on our number line. From there, much like it was with fractions, we need to remember that we've got negative 7.1, negative 7.2, negative 7.3, and so on, counting down from right to left. If we were counting up, we would go left to right, but since we're in the negatives, we're actually kind of thinking of it in terms of counting down. Now, once I get all of my numbers on here, let me switch colors. I can plot the point at negative 7.6 because I've got that clearly shown right here. Our next question is a little bit different just because it shows a different place value that we're graphing. So again, I want to draw my number line, but this time instead of saying that 20.34 is in between 20 and 21, I actually want to think about 20.34 being in between 20.30 and 20.40. Let me put those on my number line. Now this is where knowing how to round or approximate a value can come in really handy. If I can see what tenths that hundredth is between, that can be really helpful. So again, tenths are here, hundredths are here. Now once I have those two plotted, because I want the hundredths that are in between the tenths, I actually only need 10 spaces, which means again I need 9 dashes. And just like previously in the last example, I can say this is 20.31, 20.32, 20.33, and I have found my 20.34. Now, whether or not your instructor has asked you to label the numbers, it is helpful to then just make sure you've got enough stuff on your number line. So you might choose to then fill in the numbers, but it's really up to the expectations of your instructor. It's just a great practice to use in order to make sure you've got the right number of tallies, 20.39, which would lead me to 20.40. Let's look at one more example. Here we're graphing an absolute value. Now graphing an absolute value is interesting and depends on the instructor that you're given how they want you to show it. Here's how I've taught my students to show it. When we're looking for the absolute value of something, we're actually asking how far away from 0 is that number. So that's the thing I want to show. I want to show how far -5 1/4 is from 0. So first I'm going to put my 0 and I'm going to count in my negatives to try and get to a space where I could have that -5 1/4. Now I know that -5 1/4 is in between -5 and -6, which means I really need to tune into making sure -5 and -6 fit on my number line. Then I look at my denominator. It looks like I'm going to need fourths in this graph. And really, I only care about fourths in between -5 and -6. So let me zoom in here. I'm going to put 3 tally marks, which gives me fourths. And again, I should know that -5 and 1/4 would be right here. I'm counting from the -5 toward the -6. Now this is where it's subject to your instructor. So on this problem, to show the distance of -5 and 1/4 to 0, some instructors show it in different ways. One way to show it is to draw an arrow to 0, and then often we'll put 5 and 1/4, just to show that -5 and 1/4 is 5 and 1/4 spaces or hops or jumps or steps from 0. This is your graph of an absolute value. I hope that makes some sense to you. I hope this has helped you better understand how to graph both positives and negatives, both fractions and decimals, depending on what you're given. I appreciate you being here and watching my video. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.